It started with a conversation within our own businesses. We were trying to eliminate it as a waste source because we found that it wasn't actually being composted or recycled like we wanted. So we were trying to find an alternative solution.
We were involved then that spring in the KWD spring cleanup, and we noticed a huge amount of paper cups that were ending up in the national park, which obviously is our bread and butter, and it's why we have businesses in the first place. So it just didn't make any sense.
So I have a coffee shop here in town, and I noticed that the consumption patterns of consumers was quite incredible in terms of paper cup usage. People would almost get a paper cup for every coffee they were getting, and when you add these up over weeks, months, years, quite a remarkable number here in Ireland.
We initially, on a piece of paper, just wrote down all of the independent coffee shops in Killarney and listed them, and we divided them up amongst ourselves because we're born and bred in Killarney, so we know all the owners, and we just sat down and had an individual conversation with everyone just to throw out the possibility of Killarney coming together as a community to be single-use coffee cup free, and to we asked them to look at the possible issues that they might have with it, and we invited them then to a meeting at the end of that month.
We brought them a possible solution based on the feedback from the preliminary conversations. So they had kind of presented their fears and what their barriers might be. So on that evening we kind of gave some information around stats of single-use cups in Ireland. It's over 200 million every year that are used, and there's very little recycled or composted. And then we kind of came up with a few different options for how it might look, so that they had an idea of how we would address those barriers that they might have for the project.
Yeah, so I guess we kind of gave each coffee shop owner, and I guess ultimately consumer, 3 options that we were encouraging people to sit in and have their coffee. If they didn't have time to sit in, we're on the go, we encourage them to bring their own reusable cup. And thirdly, if they didn't have their own reusable cup, we introduced a return and deposit scheme. So the customer pays €2 deposit for the cup. They can take that coffee down the street, finish it off, hand it into another coffee shop and get their €2 back, so costing them nothing.
And then I think the three bullet points that we constantly used when we were encouraging coffee shops to get involved was, number one, there was an environmental aspect, obviously with our location of Killarney National Park, which is a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. The second was a branding opportunity, that we felt that it would be a really good branding opportunity for the town, and that might traditionally have never sat in that sustainability space. And third was financial. We were spending thousands of euro on, we were able to look at our own business and see how much we were spending on paper cups yearly, and we felt that there was a huge saving there.
And we were also trying to align with policy. I suppose the latte levy had been announced, and all the participants were very aware of that Ireland was planning to be the first country in Europe to become single-use coffee cup free. So knowing that it was coming down the line anyway, they were actually quite engaged from the start. We looked for financial support from a few entities in town: the Chamber of Commerce, Kerry County Council, the Credit Union,
Kerry Convention Bureau, AIB,
Wonderwild,
the Wonderwild Festival,
and our own businesses, the Killarney Park and the Ross.
Obviously it started with the independent coffee shops and hotels, but that has extended out to factories, law, solicitors' offices. All the primary schools in Killarney became involved as well. So I suppose what is important to say, that from that meeting with all the coffee shop owners, the 2 aspects that were very important to them was, number one, funding. They needed to be funded to do this. If you're going to be the first to do anything, you need to be incentivized. And the second was they needed a very strong communications plan. So we secured funding, and we secured a PR agency to run that campaign.
Important to note there as well, with that funding, we divided it between financial support for the businesses and the PR campaign. So some of that funding went to the PR campaign for posters and signage and advertising throughout local publications, and then the remainder of that funding then was used to buy a starting stock of deposit cups for each cafe to have, so they would have stock to get them going.
So we had the press release and the launch on the 11th of July, and then implementation date was the 31st of July. So they had 3 weeks with their starting stock to get used to the system and talk to their customers about how it was going to work and get some feedback.
It's important to note at that time there was kind of a dual process, so they had reusable cups on top of their coffee machine and paper cups, so it was a chance to kind of get used to the deposit scheme, the system, €2 in, €2 out, get everyone trained up, and then, yeah, as Louise said, there was 3 weeks there of kind of a training period, and then come the 31st of July, the paper cups went away and it was just reusables.
Certainly we didn't expect the amount of media it would receive.
Yeah. But even just word of mouth, like locals were just, you know, head over heels about the project, you know, like people from Killarney, they're very proud of where they're from. We sit just outside of 26,000 acre national park, so they were really proud to be seen to be doing this to protect the thing that they've got so much benefit from throughout their lives. Similarly, I'd hear it at the Till and Luna all the time. Any visitor coming to Killarney, telling them about the project, they were all saying, I wish my town, city, back home had the same initiative. So both locals and tourists alike really took to it really well.
I think climate change and citizen climate action can seem quite big and scary, and sometimes when you break it down to simple actions that kind of make people aware of their consumption behaviours and patterns, that they kind of think, oh, I can actually do this, this is something I can manage and bring into my daily routine to do something positive. And
you know, on that, like a small change in their daily habit actually has a huge impact in the kind of bigger picture. So like this project alone has saved over 1 million cups from ending up in landfill. So in Ireland, you know, 200 million go to landfill every year. So, you know, even just one town doing it has quite a big impact.
And I think people were very proud of the project. You know, we were very cognizant of ensuring that the project belonged to the town. It didn't belong to us three at all. Yeah. So we were very much in the background with the project. We really tried to ensure that the locals owned it, that anyone who was a citizen of the town owned this project. Yeah. And I think that really helped to that ownership aspect of it.
With any project, there's always going to be speed bumps, and the ones that really kind of stood out to us were the lack of policy from government. I guess a lot of the participants before entering this project were of the belief that there was going to be a latte levy introduced by government within a few months of starting the project. You know, that's yet to come to fruition, so that's, you know, one very disappointing thing. And you can see why, because that would have mainstreamed bringing your own cup. Exactly. So what they were doing would have been really supported nationally. Exactly. Just like the plastic bag levy, that's what was needed. Yeah. Exactly. We kind of learned that to persuade people to change behaviours, you really need a financial incentive or disincentive, and that's kind of what we're waiting for from government. The second thing that was kind of a bit of a disappointment for some of the participants were that a few coffee shops have decided to opt out of the project. And I guess kind of when we were planning this project, it was really the collective, that's where the strength was, that it was going to be the whole town doing this. So unfortunately there's been a couple of coffee shops that have decided to pull out or not participate from the start, so that just weakens the kind of collective power essentially. And especially with the multinationals. Exactly, yeah. So, you know, like the garages and supermarkets that aren't involved in the project. Exactly, yeah. So I guess it's a bit of a disappointment that it's big corporations who have, you know, the big bank accounts aren't supporting this project, where it's kind of left up to the independent coffee shops and independent hotels to do the right thing. So yeah, that's a bit of a disappointment, definitely. But I think for every town, they have their version of a why, and they will speak to their businesses as to how. So it has to be, you know, unique to your location and your businesses. So your solution will probably be more reflective of what you're trying to achieve and who you are within your local area.
And that's really important to work that out collectively and figure out the solution, because the solution is going to be the key to long-term engagement of how it actually works operationally.
Yeah, I definitely think it has massively changed behaviours and educated a lot of people about their usage. Like, even going away from coffee cups, we have people coming in to Luna with lunch boxes, being like, can you fill this with salad, you know, things. So they're definitely more aware of their consumption habits on the back of this.
And we always said that at the start, that we can't change the world, but if we focus on one singular thing, that will have a knock-on effect on other aspects of people's lives, maybe in terms of how they separate recycling at home, or, you know, I remember one local said that, you know, they would go through 3 coffees a day, and they were all adding up in the car. So they were, you know, she was clearing her car every evening, and they were going into her bin, and she was like, this is crazy. So again, people have changed their behaviours, and that's really lovely to see. And as I said, the knock-on effects of it is extra bonus.